25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. John Fuller is in the studio to answer your questions about the law, about your legal circumstances, about that car accident you were in or somebody you know was in. John is an attorney here in Ocala at the law firm of Fuller and Fuller. His wife, Janet Fuller, is the other Fuller in the name of the firm. And John is here on this show called Legally Yours to answer your questions. The phone number to call John right now is 622-9622. And let me tell you the date so you know if it's a live show or not. Today is Wednesday, October 28th, 2015. If that's the same date on your calendar, you're invited to call 622-9622. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Larry.
How are you doing?
How are you, and how's everything at the radio station been?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. Hope all our listeners have had a good week. I see from all your decorations that Halloween is upon us, so
right.
Certainly want to urge motorists and everyone to be careful when kids are out on the roads.
Yeah.
But we have a call, so that's great.
Good job. Wow, you saw my good peripheral. Good morning. You're on the air with John.
Yeah, good morning, Don, and I appreciate this.
Good morning.
There's such a thing as a common law marriage. I've been living with a lady on and off for a number of years, and is there such thing as a common law marriage anymore, or is it gone away, or what?
Well, that's a great question, and it doesn't come up often, but it's important when it does come up, and it can sure. I've seen it involve some big estate cases over the years, but here's the answer. In Florida, there is no common law marriage anymore. That statute was repealed many, many, many years ago, and so it does not matter. You cannot have a relationship ripen into a marriage in the state of Florida. Having said that, they are very few states, the only one that I am aware of off the top of my head that recognize common law marriages is the state of Georgia.
Oh, really?
So, if you have a relationship and it meets the criteria, and you're living in Georgia with your significant other, and it meets the Georgia criteria to ripen into a common law marriage in Georgia, and you are married under the provisions of the common law statute of Georgia, and then you move to Florida, you are considered married in Florida because Florida gives full faith and credit and acknowledges the laws of other states. Therefore, if you had a relationship that ripened into a common law marriage in any state that recognizes it, and the only one I know of off the top of my head is Georgia, and then you leave Georgia and move to Florida, you are considered married in the state of Florida. So that I hope answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I had a wife of 43 years, and my wife got killed in an accident. But I mean, I believe in marriage, but I mean, I was just wondering about this. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling. That's a good question. And we had a case a number of years ago. I was just one of the co-counsel helping the Georgia lawyer, and they had some folks who had lived together in Georgia so that it became a common law marriage. Then they came to Florida and acquired substantial assets in Florida, and then were back, and one of them expired, and there was an argument that were they married, weren't they married, and they had a big estate fight over it. It was finished a couple of years ago.
Really?
But that was a very interesting scenario that involved very similar facts and law to what the gentleman just asked about. So, good question. Thanks for listening, and thanks for calling.
I think it's the first time we ever had that particular question.
I think so too. It doesn't come up often because the common law marriage in Florida has been outlawed for, I don't even know when it was, but it was 50 years ago.
So if a couple were living together, not married, and acquired assets because of a business they were in together, maybe an informal relationship.
There are other potential causes of action that you could have an implied contract. You could have other things to fight about. Okay, they're pretty difficult to win, but it depends upon what the parties say to each other and how they act to each other as to whether or not there is some kind of an implied contractual commitment between the two of them.
What if there are children? If there are children,
the children you would still have.
There's still child support, right?
Yeah, there's still child support, but that would come basically under Florida law, under the illegitimate children statute that says if someone fathers a child and they're not married, then you can seek custody if you're the biological parent. You can seek child support, whether you're the male or the female, but that comes under a different statute.
What was the word that came out of the 70s? What was palimony? Was that the word?
Palimony, yeah. It was a case, Mitchelson versus Mitchelson in California. It was quite in the news in the 70s, and they tried to get the court to declare that because they lived together, even though they didn't have a common law marriage, they had some kind of a union, and the woman was entitled to the well, it wasn't Mitchelson. Mitchelson was the lawyer. I'm sorry. It was, oh gosh, I forget the movie star's name. Marvin. No, that was the lawyer. Anyway, he's passed away now, but he played in The Dirty Dozen. He played in a lot of movies. Gray-haired guy.
I think Tom's going to help you here.
Well, what do we have here? Georgia, no common law after January 1997. And, okay, well, Georgia finally repealed their statute, and that if it was but prior to that, then you would have it. In Florida, it was 1968. Thank you very much. So it goes back a long way. It goes back a long way. So
Tom is from Georgia, so I guess he knew that.
But you see, what happened in this case was that before Georgia was very late in outlawing their common law marriages relative to other states. And so if these people, and it specifically says in the little blurb that common law marriages entered into prior to the date it was repealed will be recognized by the state. And these people had lived together in the 60s, and by the time they moved to Florida, it had ripened into a common law marriage. So if it existed lawfully then, it would still be recognized in Georgia, and Florida would recognize it.
And I guess the only time this would play a role in anybody's concerns is when they decided to separate. I mean, that would be when you would say, well, wait a minute, do I owe you anything or not? Or do you owe me anything or not, maybe?
Well, and also it depends. You know, it grows into then a question of real property. If you've invested and titled real property, how have you titled it? And there's still property rights that could be addressed, just as if any other two people bought or invested in some real property, and then decided they couldn't get along, and what are you going to do with the real property? And how do you handle that?
Interesting
that
topic.
Gets into a lot of other matters of law.
We're right up against the first break. That was a first quick 15 minutes. We'll take a little break right now. The phone number is 622-9622. John Fuller is here to answer your legal questions. Again, if you're in a legal bind, somebody you know is in a legal bind, you're not sure about what to do, this is a great time to get that question answered and be put in the right direction by John. Today's date is Wednesday, October 28th. So you know the date. If that's the same date on your calendar, then you are listening to a live show and your calls are invited. The number is 622-9622. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, times of clouds and sun and warm. With a shower or thunderstorm in the area, high 82 to 86. There can be a shower this evening near the coast, otherwise partly cloudy tonight. Those 64 inland, 69 at the coast. Tomorrow, times of sun and clouds, just a chance of a shower, high 81 to 85. And on Friday, sunshine, some clouds, and quite nice, the high 81 to 85. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
We're saving thousands with Robert Palmer.
So rule number one is always shop around. Always shop around. If you're trying to get a mortgage, if you're trying to get the best credit card, if you're looking at student loans, cell phone bills, you name it, rule number one is always shop around. Always shop around.
That's rule number one, just one more vital part of fighting back to stop being a financial zombie. Yes, you can take the mystery out of the complicated world of finances. Take charge when it comes to your money. Listen in on The Source, 96.3 FM and 1370 AM, Saturdays at 12:05.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
And it's bad thoughts about messing up or not being good enough that kill confidence. So tell yourself, you can do it. Blowing bubbles can help us fall asleep because it's like a deep breathing exercise helping to calm our body and mind. And since blowing bubbles feel silly, it helps the mind move on from worries that might keep us awake. So throw back some cranberry juice, improve your heart health within 24 hours.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Florida State looks to rebound from a tough loss to Georgia Tech last Saturday by welcoming in the Syracuse Orange into Doak Campbell Stadium right here on WOCA The Source, brought to you by Tri-Eagle Sales, your local Bud Light distributor in Marion County. Kickoff is at 12 p.m. this Saturday, Florida State versus Syracuse, right here on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA The Source.
All right, 13 minutes before 11 o'clock. John Fuller is here. Again, the date is October 28th, 2015. If that's the same date on your calendar, you're listening to a live show, and that's important because if you want to call in, you go ahead and call in right now, 622-9622. Do you have any cases where somebody is... We've had a couple of stories recently of people getting hit in the street just walking, and it concerns me because the AAA report said when Halloween falls on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, the number of injuries and deaths on Halloween by car versus person is 50% greater on those 3 days.
That's so sad. I think, I have no statistical basis for this, but I think most people, adults included, they tend to kind of wind down their week when they get to Thursday.
I think you're right.
I mean, they may be a little less vigilant because maybe they have gone out to dinner, maybe they have, just whatever. It's also so dark now. We haven't gone off of daylight savings time.
Right.
I think that happens this weekend, but that's another contributing factor. And it's just kids are kids, and it's always a shame. It was a horrible tragedy with a young man who was from this area, who was a swimmer, who went to Florida Southern College in Lakeland, who was killed this last weekend. He was laying in Highway 98
I saw that
Lakeland
story.
About 2 a.m. and was hit by a car.
That was terrible. Yeah.
18 years old. I saw it in the paper. A nice-looking young man.
Do we know why he was lying in the road?
They have not reported. They say it's still under investigation. It was about little after 2 a.m. in the morning.
That's horrible.
On Sunday morning. But he was there as a swimmer. He was from this area, from Marion County.
Right.
And I did not know him or his family, but certainly our sympathy and thoughts and wishes are for their comfort, and I can't imagine anything more horrible. And I just read it in the paper, but it just goes to show you cannot be too careful. And if anyone, and we talk about this all the time, if anyone has been seriously injured in an automobile accident, I would be happy to talk with them. I do that as a part of my practice. I've been board certified now for 30 plus years by the Florida Bar as a civil trial advocate. And you can call us at Fuller & Fuller, 352-547-4292. You can find out all of the information about our law firm on our website at ocala-lawyer.com.
Real quickly, going back to the common law marriage thing, since there is none, would you take the case if, let's say, a woman came to you and said, look, I've been living with this guy for 30 years, we never got married? Would you take that case? Would there be a case there?
It depends on so many factors, Larry. How did they conduct themselves? Did they commingle assets? Did they acquire property in joint names? Are there any assets to fight over? Is it cost efficient? If you're fighting over who's going to get the cups and saucers and knives and forks, no, I wouldn't take that case.
Yeah, right.
If you're talking about a $10 million estate, then it certainly would merit investigation into the facts, talking to witnesses, discovering their lifestyle, and carefully, meticulously researching all of the different potential legal theories that might apply to that very specific fact scenario. So, those are all things that we look at when we decide to take a case or not. We take a case that has very good issues and good liability, but if there are no assets there to justify the cost and expense, you haven't done anybody any favor.
You have another phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes, good morning. I have a question.
Good morning.
A friend of mine whose mother died and left everything to the kids, divided up by 5. There's 5 kids. And the sister of the deceased is the executrix. She has decided to give different amount. It's not divided up equally, but it says divided up equally in the will. The sister decided to do whatever she wanted with the money. How can they get around that? How can they legally fight that?
Well, you can't answer that question specifically on that amount of information. Number one, is it in the state of Florida? Number two, I'm sorry?
No, it is not.
Then I could not offer you any meaningful answer because the probate laws of each state are different. So what should have happened, if a person is a beneficiary, an heir at law, or an interested party in an estate, and there is a will, and the personal representative is what they're called in Florida. Some states call them executors for men, executrix for women, same term. They're duty bound to follow what is in the decedent's will. If they depart from that, then you would have to seek your remedy to enforce the terms of the decedent's last will and testament. But you need, whoever is involved with that needs to consult with a lawyer in the state where it is, and they need to do that timely because there are certain cutoff dates that are established by statute that limit even valid claims after a certain period of time if they're not pursued in a timely manner. So that's the best answer I can give you. But thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good call. The phone number again is 622-9622, and again the date is October 28th if you want to call in.
That's such an important question to ask people because the laws differ from state to state. And you talk about a whole fact scenario,
right.
And if it's in another state, the answer could be entirely different. So the first thing is what body of law applies. Where did the person live at the time of his death? They all have certain commonality in them. Have another call. Let's take it. We got a few minutes.
Good morning. You're on there with John.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm calling because I have some property that is out on 40, and I discovered that I'm the only one that gave up right-of-way. So now, all of the property that is before mine have no right-of-way, so I have no legal right-of-way to my property. What I've been told is that I need to get a lawyer and pay to get right of way when it was my grandparents' property.
Well, the simple answer to that is there is a statute in Florida law that if you own a parcel of property that was part of a larger parent tract and it was divided so that you ended up with the parcel that you own is landlocked because of the other parcels that came out of the original tract did not make provision for you to have reasonable access to a road, then there are statutes that you can file a lawsuit to establish a statutory or common law way of necessity is what it's called. And that's the remedy for people who are landlocked out of the same parcel. And it says that that way of necessity shall be determined, the size of it shall be determined as to what is reasonable over the most practicable route to get to the closest highway for ingress and egress. So it is a lot more complicated than we can talk about in a few minutes on a general topic radio program, but there are legal remedies, and you know, that's the way you should pursue it.
Okay, but one more thing. My cousins have sold their property, so there are some different owners. The family is not part of it.
Well, the law remains the same. Whoever is the successor in title from the original title, if their property landlocks yours, then you have a claim for a way of necessity over the most reasonable and practicable way across that property that has caused you to be landlocked.
Okay.
Good luck to you. Yes,
much.
ma'am. My pleasure. Thanks for calling.
All right. Bye-bye.
Wow, some good calls today. We are just about 2.5 minutes away from having to wrap it up already. Can you repeat your contact information again?
Yes. If you've been in a serious accident or you have a civil dispute or business commercial or Social Security disability question, call the Fuller & Fuller Law Firm. Our office number is 352-547-4292. Our toll-free number is 855-534-2565. You can get all of our information and those numbers from our website, ocala-lawyer.com. And we look forward to hearing from people. Hopefully no one is seriously injured, but if they are, we would be pleased to talk with them to see if we could help.
Just to recap on the last lady who called, if that were me and I were to go to the people who had the land that should be the right-of-way, I mean, would I avoid a whole lot of problem if I could maybe just work something out with that person?
Of course. One of the things would be to first of all, you need to have, the history of the title of the property, any old surveys that may have been done on it, and then I would hire a good surveyor to help me try to plan a reasonable and practical way of necessity, and I would go to the property owners with that information and would ask them if they would give me either a deed conveying that property to me, or if not that, an easement. So and you know, many times things are worked out, and you need to check with the city or the county or both to see what is a reasonable and practical size, because they have different requirements of the size that the road needs to be in order to meet county code. And so those are all things that yeah, if two people are reasonable, can work it out, everything's better like that than a lawsuit, I assure you.
Yeah. I just thought it would be a nice way to save a few dollars instead of going through the whole legal process.
Yeah, but it needs to be done right with having a good record of the real property title to all the property, yours and the surrounding property, and then have a really good surveyor who can look at any old surveys, Another thing that may exist in that is there an old road that has historically been used?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
John, as always, a great show. This is WOCA Ocala. We'll be right back.
Hope it didn't run late.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The man who was once third in line for the presidency, pleading guilty to lying to the FBI. Dennis Hastert has now left the Chicago courtroom.
Now, the prosecution